Okay. Hi, Holly. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me today and taking the time to let me interview for this project. Um, anyways, I'd like to first start out by asking you if you could tell us a little bit about your current job position at Juniper Networks and basically what your role entails. So, what are your responsibilities within your position?
Sure, and it's great to talk to you, Jessica. I'm happy to help out. So my role at Juniper is that of Director of Global Professional Services Operations. So within our customer services team, we have four services lines of business. We have education services, maintenance services, advanced services, and professional services. And I handle all of the operations types of things, so tooling, processes, people development, kind of our organizational structure. I even get involved with human resources, anything that has to do with how we operate the business on a day-to-day basis falls underneath my umbrella.
Great. So I know that your position requires communicating globally, and so every day might not be the same due to the different time zones that you are communicating with. But could you just maybe tell me what a typical day is like for you?
Yes, and you are absolutely right. It's hard to describe a typical day because every day is a bit different, but there are some common themes in that I'm generally talking to people around the globe. So my workday can start as early as 4 or 5 in the morning if I have a call with Asia where I have to, wrap up something that is, needs to be completed within, the East Coast business day. I might have to get on the phone early, super early in the morning. Same
Hmm.
thing, I could be on the phone late at night talking to Asia, but generally I try to accommodate my schedule. I'm usually the least common denominator. So if there's one of me and there's 4 or 5 people in another region that I
Right.
need to speak with, I tend to try to be a bit flexible and schedule, more within, their time frame. But generally, I'm a remote employee for Juniper. I work from a home office most of the time. I
Hmm.
travel a lot, so obviously, if I'm traveling, it's a different schedule than if I'm home. But if I'm home, I'm generally on conference calls all day for the most part. Connecting with the different regions on day to day. It could be things around what's going on in our sales funnel, depending on the time in the quarter. I might have to reach out and determine how are we, measuring against our financial metrics, our sales achievement, revenue, and COGS and gross margin. We benchmark those points at various times within the quarter, or I might be working on a specific project. For example, knowledge management falls under my umbrella, and we had recently introduced a tool called SharePoint that we use as a for all of our collaboration as well as our document storage system. So, in addition to the conference calls, which often relate to projects but not always, I then have kind of independent work that I need to get done, related to a specific project and tasks, for those projects. And then, of course, keeping track of the project plans and the associated executive update,
Hmm.
kind of reports that tend to happen in PowerPoint. So yeah, it can be. It's usually a day filled with phone
Yeah.
calls, lots of email, and various things going on using some form of Microsoft Office, whether it's PowerPoint, Word, or Excel.
Yeah,
So a lot of
absolutely.
communication.
So I understand that your job is a little bit higher up, but I want to focus a little bit on what you have for your advice as far as entry level positions within the professional services team. So, do you know offhand of any entry level positions within Juniper's professional team? And if so, does Juniper offer any training programs for entry level positions?
Yes, in fact, one of our corporate initiatives is to um, expand and become a bit more diverse across, all aspects of diversity, and so that
Mm-hmm.
includes bringing in, um, folks from college. So we have an official program, an NCG program, New College Grad Program, where we're going out and looking for folks that we can bring in, specifically in professional services. The PS team tends to be a bit more technical because they're dealing with the turn up installation and turn up of our equipment at a customer site a lot of the times. But we do have, entry level positions for new college grads to come in and start learning the rope, and a
Right.
rotation program. So oftentimes we'll have our PS consultants rotate through with our systems engineers so that, you
Mhm.
know, they work very closely with that team, and it does a couple of things. First of all, it builds a lot of relationships, and second of all, it allows somebody to determine, you know what, maybe I'm actually better suited to be an SE versus a consultant. So within PS, that definitely exists. There's a focus on hiring new college grads and definitely on training as well.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And then, so what skills or qualifications do you believe are necessary for an individual seeking one of those positions within the entry level, or even getting involved in that rotation program that you were mentioned?
I think, to get started, it depends if it's a technical role or not. I mean, if it's going to be a technical role involving our products, one of the things we're going to look at is basically what type of degree does the person have. So if it's
Hmm.
a super technical role, it's probably going to be some sort of engineering degree. If it's a role in, like our marketing group or, um, some of the other, like the business operations team, like, I'm going to possibly have, a rec open in the future. It could be different skills. Like I might be looking for somebody more with, a finance background or a communications background, depending
Right.
what, the specific need is. But at
Hmm.
our core, we do tend to be more of an engineering centric company. But aside from that, aside from like the hard skills, we look at soft skills. How does the person listen? Do they understand what it means to consult with a customer? And some of that, we are looking for a basic understanding in those areas because we know we can train.
Right.
But it's a lot of people skills. Can the person operate well in a team?
Hmm.
Or are they going to be the type of person that wants to go sit, behind a computer and never be seen? So, and there are jobs actually for all those types of personalities, and it's just trying to figure out what the right profile is for the specific role that we have in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have two more questions for you. And I actually, this is a little bit more about your position. About how many hours do you work a week, and well, typically work? And then, do you find that you work mostly weekdays, or do you work on weekends? I know you mentioned that since you do deal with other teams that are global. I know that might be difficult to answer, but if you were to say, like, about how many hours a week does a typical person within your team work?
Yeah. Yeah, so I was chuckling a little bit as you're asking that question because now might not be the best time to ask me that because I've just taken on more responsibilities. So I'm working quite a bit more than I
Right.
would care to. But so I'm hoping it's a temporary inflection point. But right now
Hmm.
I've been pulling a lot of, 10, 12, even a couple 14-hour days and even using the weekends to catch up. But in general, I think, being a professional, at a company, especially a high tech company,
Right.
it's definitely not a 40-hour work week. It's,
Hmm.
you know, if things are relatively under control, it's, 50 hours usually, maybe a little bit more. It kind of flexes depending on, like, for me, the time of quarter plays a role because things get really busy at the beginning of every quarter because we have all of the quarterly business reviews and quarterly operations reviews, and then towards the end of the quarter where we're
Hmm.
watching revenue and trying to understand if we're making our targets. But I think the key thing is to just be flexible, and I have always worked for great managers, and so,
Yeah.
if you're putting in the hours, it does get recognized, and your boss tends to be pretty flexible with you when you need to, scoot out for
Hmm.
a few hours. So it's a
Yeah.
very trustworthy environment, and I think Juniper does a lot to just empower the person to get their work done.
That's great. And then, I'd like to ask you, what part of your job do you believe is most satisfying, or perhaps what part of your job do you find most challenging?
Yeah, so for most satisfying, I think, at the end of the day, I think it's about the people. I get the
Hmm.
most satisfaction on, you can give me a tough project, but if I have a great group of people to work with and I love to collaborate and mind share and, work together to get something done, I find that far more satisfying than working in a vacuum and trying to
Right.
solve something on my own. And I think Juniper specifically has done a really great job employing, some great talent. And
Hmm.
I feel very fortunate that one of my favorite parts of being in the company that I'm in and the position that I'm wide array of just very talented people, number one, but just good people.
Right.
People that you know, that understand that behind every desk and behind every phone there's a human. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Holly, for joining me today in this professional interview. And I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. And I look forward to speaking with you again soon.